My wind tunnel just turned on, so I'll be muted.
All right, guys, welcome to the episode of the Alpha Strike podcast. As we were explaining, we're going to have the top two winners of the only GT over the weekend. So these guys did it all and took home the bacon. They went to the Capital City Clash over in South Carolina. So we have Brenton Weiss and Antonio Pierce. Um, we're gonna let them start off and tell everyone about their list and go over that, and then go over some high points of their games and how they enjoyed the tournament, um, and if they would go back to another one. So we'll start off with Brenton. If you want to just go ahead and tell everyone who you are and explain your list.
Hey guys, I'm Brent Weiss. I'm from the Augusta area in Georgia, member of Augusta Wargaming and Brohammer. I decided to try Tau out for the very first time, actually, for the Capital City Clash. Pretty solid event. List was pretty simple. It's the basic triple Riptides and triple Commanders with all the shield drones. Functions just as anyone would really suspect. Play a little bit differently, a little more aggressive with my shield drones and my commanders than I probably should, but I feel it kind of paid off. Did you have any questions specific that you want to know about the list, Daniel?
Yeah. So I mean, what made you want to play Tau? Was it the overwhelming experience of Brohammer having everyone that plays Tau, or
No, actually, so I wanted something a little less mobile for the most part, just because I actually tore my rotator cuff, so it was kind of like a last minute decision.
you would say it's a crutch?
No, no, um, no, no. I just I do like Tau. They kind of got that weeb factor really strong, and being a 31-year-old weeb myself, I was kind of like, yeah, I can dig on the anime fish people. Why not? Try them out. And it was a really big, like, hey, this is a charity event. I'll try it before I buy all the models. And I borrowed the models from a friend, and I kind of like how they play. So, I mean, I'm pretty dead set on building it.
So you're gonna stick with that for a little while?
I bounced back and forth between that and Pure Thousand Suns, actually.
Okay. Pure Thousand Suns, eh?
Yep, I declared I was going to play Pure Thousand Suns for Warzone Atlanta, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Awesome. What were the top five? You had 5 games. You said you had 5 great opponents earlier. What were some standout moments with your little Tau excursion there?
Well, it really just depends on the game itself. The last 3 opponents that I had were all amazing people. I played them all multiple times, being Tim Bryant, in my opinion, one of the better orc players in the entire Southeast. Philip Kovac, who continues to deny the meta with his weird lists that somehow he manages to make work. And Mike DeLeggy, who, despite the Castellan being a crutch now, he made that work too.
So did you let him borrow your sling?
Did what? No. No, the first 2 games I got to meet some pretty cool opponents that I've never played before. One was a guy running some really cool Necron infantry for the most part. I mean, he of course had the triple Doom Scythe and triple Doomsday Arc, but other than that, it was all infantry, and that was really cool to see that function in a different way. That kind of made me think, hey, Necrons actually pose a threat in a different way as well. And then I fought the Eldar Flyer Span, which was actually one of the neatest games I've played. I was able to drop 4 planes in one turn, the 5th one being dropped down to a wound, and then leaving 1 untouched. He also had a bunch of Eldar tanks in the backfield. He had very few bodies.
You had +1 to hit for against fly, right?
Velocity tracker. So that canceled out the oh hey, it's airborne. But I mean, I still had to deal with the Alatoct, -1 debuff to me. But
Right.
overall, it worked out pretty well. I relied heavily on the Sacia stratagem to create that bubble of marker lights to start, and then my characters to get those additional marker lights, and then the Pathfinders just kind of like help light them up just a little bit more. But my favorite moment of the entire weekend was when I dumped 5 marker lights on a Razorwing jet fighter, and instead of my other Pathfinder units firing marker lights, they, along with the Fire Warriors, decided to take down a flyer all by themselves. Like, that was actually a pretty big moral victory for me.
Very cool. Little Brandon Grant LGO action.
Yep. But no, there was one game that stood out though as being like one of the toughest games I played, and that was actually against Phil Kovac. He gave me a really good run for my money. The game was only 18-17, 1 point for me. And there's only one other game this season I've had that close, and that was with actually Thomas Beard. So.
Yeah, Phil's a good player, good guy all around.
I think so.
So you had fun. Explain the event a little bit, because it was a little bit different, and as far as it was a charity event. So there was questions as far as where the charity goes and all that. So just give them a shout out and talk about that a little bit if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool. The charity itself is going to help families of officers who have either fallen or suffered some drastic loss of some sort, or even just suffered a drastic situation. Help the families financially with a few things to include. I think they said even helping with their kids at college or something like that.
Right.
That was talked about. But regardless, I mean, to me, that kind of hit a soft spot because of my time in the service and all of my friends who have been in the service. A lot of us, wounded veterans, and I can put them kind of on that same playing field, and to reach out and help them. That was something that kind of hit home.
So it was definitely a worthy cause, and going to.
I think it was. I think it was a very noble cause. Really happy that George and Joel went out of their way to do this. It's my understanding that there was a lot more time put into this than any time I put into an event, which kind of set a bar higher for me to achieve. But no, they did a fantastic job, and they set a tone for the event that said, "Hey, it's for a good cause. Let's drink beer and have fun." Good,
very good. Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth. He was asking for advice and trying to give him anything that I could help him with as well. I hated that I couldn't go, but with Nova coming up the following week with the family, it's kind of pick and choose time sometimes. So
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to get her on board to let me go to Nova now.
Better go suck it up now. So we got Tony here. Tony came in second. You're still playing your list that you played back at Crusades, right? Or not Crusades, Warzone.
Yeah, Giga. So that was a list that we come up with for ATC as kind of an answer to the triple disco Lord Morty list. And I've not really liked the way that GSC has been, I guess the holes it's been forced into. I know Frankie from Frontline Gaming has been running a bike list that he really likes. And I've not been able to get the double aberrant or the triple aberrant lists to work. And the way that I was running them with lots of acolytes is very fragile. So I've been looking for something else. I've been slowly building up a guard army, slowly building up a custodes army. So the list is 3 Clades tanked with Trahan, 3 tank commanders, 1 battle cannon, the rest all plasma, and a Knight Crusader. And just kind of later in the season, after slugging it out with GSC and then with Chaos and ATC, I kind of wanted something that would be a little bit easier to pilot. It's a very powerful list. I don't know that I like it. I'm probably not going to stick with it. It's very reliant on first turn. It can be very fragile if it doesn't get that first turn. And the minute you start losing a tank, the firepower tends to go pretty quick after that.
Yeah, it's definitely a shit ton of firepower.
That yeah.
You were blowing through some of your opponents at Giga. So the top, couple games that you had at Clash. You want to go over some of those, some memorable moments and some high points?
Yeah, I played. I'm trying to think. My first game was against a guy playing Gene Stealer Cult, and he wasn't as familiar with them as I was, so that was kind of an easier game for me. My second game I played against Mike Ellison running Necrons. I think he ended up coming in fourth, and him and I both knew going into that one it was basically a coin flip whoever got first, and I ended up seizing on him. And then my third game was against Bobby Birmingham. I seem to have a bit of his number. We thought that was going to be a coin flip. He went first and did not do as much damage as we thought he would, and I was able to remove a couple of his executioners early on. Probably my favorite game was my game 4 against Mike DeLegge. DeLegge, I don't know how to say his last name.
Yeah,
DeLegge. He was running a Castellan, 2 Crusaders as House Raven. We got a hammer and anvil deployment with a full deploy, and I deployed first, and I set up a little bit for the C's. It ended up costing me. I should put all my tanks on the line because he put his entire army on the back edge of the hammer and anvil, which was pretty funny. So it took out pretty much everything but the Caladius and the hammer of Sunderance. So I didn't get any kills on turn 1. That ended up being a 3-point swing, which won him the game.
So that was a basically who goes first scenario with the setup.
We both thought it was. It ended up actually being a very tight, very close game. Like I said, he won 26-23. With the way that I had deployed, not as aggressively, just because I never trust the C's. I don't want to get seized on and have my whole army just go up in smoke. So I deployed probably a little bit more defensively than maybe most people would have. So I didn't bring my full firepower to bear until turn 2 or 3. Trying to hang on, it was the mission with the you placed objectives.
Okay.
So I was able to hold more. I turned 1, 2, and 3, and after that, he was able to take the middle from me and swing it back in his favor.
Okay. So, Brenton, what was your favorite game and why?
My favorite game was definitely against Phil Kovac. We go back and forth quite a bit. It seems like every time we play in his garage or mine, because he's actually my neighbor, lives right behind me, I lose drastically. And that's kind of how I test my lists. And then whenever we come up into a tournament, it seems like his dice, remember, they want to reroll all ones into ones. So, Phil is probably one of the better players I've played against. And he's just really good to be able to test myself against.
Sure.
Taking a brand new army in general into this event, I didn't expect to go 5-0. I really only expected like maybe 3-2 if I was lucky. And I remember during the game, we kept looking at each other because we didn't know what the other was going to do, because this was a completely different setup than anything we've done. Being these kind of armies against each other, and I'd move into the ruins, he'd move back into some other ruins, I'd move into some. It was 2 turns of like nothing happened. But
Just a cat and mouse game altogether.
Yeah, it was cat and mouse. It was it was extremely tactical. I think that it kind of brings that back to my military experience too. Like, with my old job and, him being one of those secret squirrel guys, it was a really interesting outcome to see how we played against each other. And I think we both had a migraine at the end of the game, but it was hard fought, and it's always memorable against Phil. We just buy each other beer throughout the entire game. It's like, I buy beer, we chug it. He buys beer, we chug it. We just keep going and have fun and roll the dice. Doesn't matter who wins at that point. We're just having fun.
Excellent. What about you, Tony? What was your favorite game of the weekend, I would say?
Favorite game was against Mike DeLeggy just because of how we both thought it was going to be a coin flip game. It ended up turning out to be a very tactical, very cat and mouse type game, which I missed having, which is why I kind of don't like the list in its current iteration. I think my favorite moment was against my last round opponent, Wayne Birch, who was trying to charge over, basically through past the Caladius to tag some tanks, and he didn't realize Trade Hand was right there, so I got him to a -8 on his charge.
Nice.
He didn't realize that could happen.
What was he charging with?
Howling Banshees.
Oh, okay.
He figured he was safe with the +3 and not being able to get Overwatched. And since he declared the Caladius, he's already at a -2, and I rolled a 6 on Taglefoot.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it. So, Brenton, what do you what's your next event you're planning on going to?
Well, I'm trying really hard for Nova. If Nova doesn't happen, then I'm kind of eyeballing Crucible, at least as far as like GTs and majors are concerned. The one I know I'm doing for sure is on September 8th. We're hosting a small RTT here in Augusta where we're doing a charity to raise money for buying the children in the university hospital toys during the holidays. You know, make sure that, hey, you know, your situation sucks, but everybody else is thinking about you.
And
Hope
when
you guys
is that?
have Christmas. I'm sorry?
When is that?
September 8th.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And Tony, what's your next big event you're going to?
I think the next one I'm going to is Crucible. I'm not going to be able to make it to Nova. I'm going on some family vacation the week after. So I just can't do both. So I'm going to try to make it down to Crucible. I got a ticket. Now I'm just looking for lodging. And then after that, Warzone Atlanta.
Excellent. So, you know, the funny part of this is if you would have like hit Brenton in his other arm where he couldn't have played and you would have won, and they asked you, what are you going to do next? You could have said, what? You're going to
Disney World, baby.
There it is. But you'll have to wait next time and cripple Brenton some other time.
So, Tony, if you don't mind me jumping in, you know, congratulations to both of you. It's awesome that, you know, the odds that put one being able to go into, you know, Brenton, from what you did with the Tau, your first time taking it out and being able to take first place at a GT, that's pretty awesome, man. Tony, with your you moved now, but you had a rather Jeff Goldblum pose there for a little bit. But how's your list, you know, going forward? Say the beta codex adjusts. I'm not saying that's going to happen by any means. It's not like I'm reading tea leaves or anything, but it is still a beta codex. We saw what happened to the Repulsor Executioner for Space Marines. If the Caladius tanks get adjusted, let's say for the worst, let's say their points go up, what do you get rid of first in your list?
That whole detachment, honestly, I've already I've got a iteration that I really like without them. That's more guard. It's Kadishan guard this time. It's a lot more infantry, and the way that I build it more as it can do both combat. There's lots of movement in it. I like it a lot better for that. I'm a little worried with the Space Marine firepower coming out, going back to T3 bodies, but it's something I definitely want to give a try.
Cool. Brenton, what about, so from your list with the Tau, what do you think going forward? Are you going to stay with that more or less that same loadout you had, or do you think you've got a better way ahead with that?
Well, I tried something a little bit different. I was running Cold Stars instead of the Enforcers. As I showed Daniel earlier, I actually just started loading out some new Enforcer commanders with cyclic ion cannons. So that seems to be the absolute go-to because they can shred both vehicles and infantry really easily. I didn't feel like I necessarily needed that, hey, I'm going to not only move 20, but I can advance all the way over here and, hey, got you real quick. Wasn't really needed. It was nice. But I think the Enforcers is the way I'm going to go, especially with Space Marines being a thing.
Tony, do you think with the tactics employed from your army, the adjustments going forward. I mean, let's say that the beta codex just stays as it is, and you've got the same army going forward. Would you still move forward into the transition with more infantry for the? I mean, there's a lot of advantage, right, to having that many more bodies on the field one way or the other. But like in regards of that, given how Space Marines are going and how we understand there's more supplements coming, right? Like there are forces to be reckoned with, and we can only imagine what Iron Hands, Salamanders, Raven Guard are all going to look like by the time their supplements coming out. By the time those come out, so are you? If the beta stayed the same, would you keep your army as is, or are you still looking at making that transition?
Yeah, even if it stays the same, I'm looking at either the more guard heavy list, or getting rid of the guard in the night and going more like a Carlos Kaiser before he got the Orion. So probably Bikes, Palace, grab tanks instead. I think either of those. It's just honestly, it's more fun. There's more tactical play there. I lean more towards the guard because that list is going to have Bullgren in it, and I just like big chunky dudes. So being able to smack people in the face with hammers just really tickles my funny bone.
I understand. Well, cool, guys. Again, congratulations to both of you. This is a great job this weekend.
You guys, let's see, both of you actually own a Gene Stealer Cold Army, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Gene Stealer Colt, Nova.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, so guilty as charged on the troll.
Yeah.
Are you trolling, or are you legitimately concerned?
All right, so as a joke, I was trolling, but I was legitimately concerned. Even if I go to Nova, I will be playing Tau. So it's not like I'd be playing Gene Stealer Colt. It was brought to my attention earlier today that Gene Stealer Colt players will not actually be able to utilize a stratagem to be able to come in on turn 4. Everything's going to be treated as reinforcements, even though it's tactical reserves, and has to come in on turn 3. In my opinion, it was just kind of like a quick gotcha moment and kind of a low blow from the TOs to all the Gene Stealer Cult players who aren't going to find out until like round 1, 2, or 3, where somebody gets in and I gotcha moment. And
so with that being brought up, and you guys both playing it on a 100% honesty level, myself, I think the whole codex is like one big gotcha moment. So,
yeah. Let's not talk about my list. Nobody knows about my list yet. Let's leave that alone.
So to say that you can't use one thing and the TO's gotcha.
So it's not necessarily the Gene Stealer Cult that's the gotcha on my list. It's the 9 suicidal vehicles in your face turn 1 that are going to blow up.
And then, sure. But I think that goes back to, is it really worth the turmoil that we've seen over social media over one small ruling? I mean, some people are going to say, oh, well, that's the survival, that's the cornerstone of my army. Is it really, like, you guys both play it? I mean, you tell us. You think it's really a crippling blow to the entire codex?
No. So essentially, if it's an FAQ that's going to come out, and it very well could be. I know some of those guys work very close with GW. They could have some inside information. That could be the way things are going forward. I think how it was done was a little weird. I had heard about it a little bit earlier today, and then put some feelers out to some of my friends that I knew that were going to play GSC at Nova if they had heard anything about this, and none of them had. When Brenton's post went up is when they came out and said, "Hey, we've been doing this for a while now, but no one's heard about that." I think the big thing, and again, this is kind of it's another GSC gotcha moment. What was very strong about GSC with respect to the Nova missions is that you could choose to have end game. You could hold off all your units until turn 5, turn 6, drop them all on all the objectives and get your 18 points, without having to do anything. So that was an issue, and my play group knew about it, and we weren't we've been playing with Chris, helping him out, trying to figure out ways to counter it. Chris isn't the only one out of our group going to Nova, and those guys got to know how to beat that. If that was the reason it was done, it was kind of done underhandedly, I guess, just because it wasn't addressed in any of the many newsletters they send out. It wasn't addressed in a timely fashion at all. I get that is a broken mechanic with regards to GSC and the way that Nova missions operate. I just think it could have been done in a different way if that was the fix they were going for. If that was even the reason they did it at all.
So they did use it at ETC, which was brought up by, I believe, Sean Naden and Mike Brandt. But and to be honest, from my understanding, Nova follows a lot of what they do regarding to some of the rules. So that kind of is a good good way to like us moving into Nova Invitational. There's big names with Gene Steele Colt in the Invitational. You already mentioned one with Chris.
Yeah, you got Nick Nanavati. You have John Lennon.
Yeah, and John's not playing Gene Steele Colt. He's playing Custodes in the Invitational.
Yes, and then Juice Stephen Four is also playing GST.
Yeah, so you got all the Gene Steele Colt in the lower brackets. So it's bound to happen.
Is it John playing the Custodes? I thought actually it was Martin doing that.
Well, he's playing the Custodes in the Invitational, and Martin's playing Custodes in the big event.
Oh, the Open. Got it. Okay. Yep. All right.
So go over some of the seedings here. We've got Tony Kopak in one with facing off against Alexander Inc. Custodes and Astra Militarum versus Necrons, basically. We've got Alex Fennell versus John Lennon. Alex is actually playing a Eldar Soup, and John's playing Custodes. I believe he's probably going to play the Orion dropship list. Then we have Jim Vessel, obviously with the Vessel list, except for that he's taken out some points and he has summoning now, I believe. And then we have Ben Sherwin with Eldar going against Jim. We have Justin Curtis with a Death Guard, Thousand Sons, and Chaos list versus Tyler DeVries, Admech Custodes. Got Andrew Gagno with Admech Custodes and Austin Wingfield with Chaos Knights, and then Kurt Kloss versus Steven Juice. Eldar versus Gene Steele Colt, and then Nick Nanavati, Gene Steele Colt versus Devin Swan, Tao from up north, and Matt Schumann, Eldar versus Chris Blackham, Gene Steele Colt. So we're going to take some predictions here. Tony Kopak, Alexander, Necrons versus Astra and Custodes.
I had to give that one to Tony. I don't know Alexander Ing. If Tony's playing his Castellan Catechin list, it's something he's very familiar with. He's been playing it for a really long time. He's a very good player. Yeah, I think he takes that matchup.
I'm actually going to agree with that because I haven't heard really anything on the other player too much. I've heard great things about the tactics used, and I guess it comes down to once again, if this Necron list is as good as some of the other ones, who's going to go first? Because if he's running Triple Doom size, then that's a good possibility. He could knock out characters and some important support for that army to function properly.
The one thing about the Nova missions is durability is heavily focused because of some of the missions that they're playing.
Right, and so with that, I've gone through the website. My predictions in there. I'm predicting that Tony's going to come out on top of that one, not just because. I mean, don't get me wrong, Necron's got a lot going for him. their durability will help hold them through a lot of what the Nova mission set is. But I just think that Kopach with his with Custodes, I think Custodes just have that next level durability, the invuln saves, and everything else that's going to hold them into it. There's not a lot that you really expect, like so Necrons with quantum shielding, the Custodes, you guys know the Caladius tanks, they can still cut through that. It's not like it's going to hold them up.
So we're all saying Kopach's gonna advance.
Yeah, that's what I'm holding to.
Like a majority here.
I
All right,
agree.
so we got John Lennon versus Alex Fennel. Custodes versus Eldar. I believe this is the plane list that Alex is playing versus the Custode dropships.
Yeah, it's going to be Custodes all day long. Custodes had the ballistic skill. He's going to get up close immediately. So Custodes hitting on 3s, that's not going to matter. The biggest question is if John can advance his Vexillus up just enough to keep the dropships within range for a turn or two.
So the big idea is if he can use the planes to assassinate that guy, right?
Yeah, which, I mean, the likelihood that he will is high. I mean, everybody remembers seeing Martin run them at Master City. That was phenomenal. The way he piloted them was fantastic. And John's had all this time to hone his ability with it and test and test and test. And he just seems to be doing really well with it altogether. And he's got tons of practice against, other great players like Ruben Fernandez down there. He's one of the top Eldar ITC. So I think his experience against Eldar Flyers as well will really help with that game.
What do you think, Tony? Who you got?
So Fennel's running Craft Worlds, Dark Eldar, and Harlequins. I'm imagining the Harlequins are in there for the bikes. The mortal wounds could give John a lot of problems if they pop off. I'm gonna give this one to John just because I know him and I love him. I don't know. I honestly don't know I've never seen those two armies fight each other like that. So I couldn't. I don't have any expertise on that other than
I can tell you this well for me.
Interesting list.
Yeah. So I'm. It's a tough one. I mean, Alex has been a contending player in previous Novas, and I mean he's done well elsewhere for sure. Obviously, he knows what he's getting into. Like it's not like any of this is a surprise. They know what they're fighting up against. Their lists aren't necessarily, at least as far as I'm tracking, they've stated what they're bringing, but they haven't actually put their list in, right? And so. Right. So with that, like, if you know what you're going into, you don't have to set yourself up. And he can sit there and bank, okay, so if he beats John Lennon, he's going to play either Tony or Alexander. And then after that, he's playing, he can adjust himself going forward. He doesn't have to commit to a bunch of flyers knowing that he's going up against Custodes, right? And so he still has the whole other rest of the codex at his disposal. And I wouldn't. I guess I wouldn't box Alex in. Now, given that I've just said that, in my prediction, I still have John Lennon taking it to go up against Tony in the next round. Again, I fall back to, I think, same thing with John, right? Like, he knows what he's getting into. He knows what he's going to play. He doesn't have to bring Orions. He could bring whatever else that he feels like bringing. And Custodes, between what they've got in 40K and in their beta codex, they've got a lot that they can bring too. And so I also wouldn't say that John has to feel put in a box by any means, limited in his options. And so that's why I do think that, again, the resiliency of the Custodes is going to win out.
Interesting. I had Alex ahead in that one, and I was kind of along the lines of what you said, where Alex is he's been in the big positions before, right? He's a very skilled player. They're not locked in at the moment, so it could be really bad where John is mono Custodes at the moment, At least that's locked. The faction's locked in, right? So if he chooses wrong in the list and does get past Fennel, then it could set him up for failure later on. So there's a huge thing there. You want to take the best list, obviously, but I think skill player or player skill is probably going to outwin that one. So I think we're 3-1 on that one. You all chose Lennon, so we're saying Kopak and Lennon are going to face off each other. Jim Vessel versus Ben. This is a very interesting one because it's most likely going to be the Ben's been playing the Eldar Flyers basically versus Demons and Smite. I've got to give this one to Jim just because I've seen that matchup before many of times, and they just don't have the firepower to kill.
That's 100% accurate.
Unless GW jumps down and does a glorious Plague Bearer nerf before the.
Say that.
Well, but so yeah, let's not foreshadow with any Plague Bearer nerfs. But so the thing about this, right, is that Ben is going into a match like he knows right now. He knows he's got to play Jim Vessel round 1, right? And so how many times in a March Madness bracket deal or where we put anything else like that where, I mean, that's one of those things where you're going up against a champ. You can only imagine that. I mean, Ben's no slouch himself, right? He's in the Invitational. And so I'm sure there's some kind of anxiety behind all that. But at the same time, sometimes that can push you to the extent that there's such an upset, right? And I can only imagine the number of brackets that would get upset, to include mine, if Ben beats Jim, because I've got Jim going to the next round as well.
I mean, it comes down to first turn on that one. If Ben gets first turn and he can get, before all the buffs and everything and the movement, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, he at least stays in the game, but after that, it's going to be hard because you're blocking out the board and grabbing objectives.
Yeah. If Ben brings the Flyers, I think he's going to be at a bit of a disadvantage, especially with the Nova format. They weight the primary very heavily. Flyers, of course, can't hold objectives, whether they're endgame or progressive. So Jim's going to have the advantage on that. I've seen Jim play that matchup, and his list is only teched to get better from there. I saw him play Chris at Adepticon. Since then, he's added the Epitome, which can cause all kinds of problems for those Flyers who pile ins with the Plague Bearers and what have you. If it's Flyers, I think Jim's played that too many times. He's been playing his army now for the better part of a year, if not longer. He's been playing almost the exact same list since LVO. I'm going to give it to Jim on this one.
All right, let's move on then. We got Justin Curtis. We all know Justin. Chaos, 1,000 Suns and Death Guard versus Tyler, DeVries, Admech, and Custodes. And Astra Militarum. So this one's a very interesting one. I think Justin has this one because he has speed and he has mortal wound spam.
Yeah, overall, I think that the durability of Death Guard is actually a little bit better than that of the Custodes. With the mortal wound spam plus the durability, there's just a lot of buffs and that he can give himself, and there's so many ways he can debuff the Imperium army. So if the Imperium army is able to actually get out there and deliver a significant blow to the Death Guard immediately, then he'll stand a chance. But I think if Chaos happens to go first, then he's going to sweep it.
Yeah, I mean, that's so with this, I mean, I admit I don't know Tyler. I'll give him some weight that he's got Custodes and go back to the same point I've said over and over so far. But I have seen Justin Curtis wield that list. Like, I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing with Mortarion, Magnus, whatever he wants to bring. If he does bring him or not, Like he knows exactly what he's doing with that list, and I think that he's definitely going to be fighting up against Jim in the next round.
All right, so we're all pretty much in agreement.
Well, I'm going to go against the grain on this one. I'm guessing Tyler's running a list very similar to yours right now, Danny, with the destroyer bomb. What's he got? Custodes in here, so he's got. He'll probably have the Cladius with a guard contingent. I think that we all know the power of the shooting of that kind of list. I know Justin tends to like the Morty Magnus combo. If that's the Thousand Sons and Death Guard part of his army, he goes second against that kind of firepower. I don't think it'll go well for him. But again, like you can't rule Justin out. He's obviously a proven general. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's been playing again the same list or similar variations for over a year.
Yeah, I mean, if it all depends, because the way his list, Tyler's list looks like it may be set. If he's playing one similar to mine, turn one could be complete glass cannon shootout of Justin Curtis's army. It just depends on what he has in the AdMech. I would strongly say that's the deal breaker. If he's using like onagers or something, not so much. But if he's using the destroyers, hands down, if he gets first turn, that's glass cannon all day long, and it blows it up. But I feel like that there's so much mobility and speed turn one charge for Justin Curtis. The thing is, just about everything in that list, in the Imperium side of it, is if it gets touched, it's shut down outside of the grab tanks if he has those. So I think we're drawing on that one, but I think it was 3-1 on Justin.
Yeah.
So we go down to Andrew Gagno, who is playing Sisters, Custodes, and Admech. That's interesting. And then we have Austin, who's playing Knights, Chaos Knights this time, with Demons and Chaos Space Marines. So soup versus soup here. This is a toss-up because I've played both of them. Both solid players. I think I give Andrew a little bit ahead on the skill side, but I think list side, I kind of like Austin's better with the combination wise.
I mean, the likelihood that he's coming with, Plague Bearers, a double Adventure Gatling Cannon Knight, and some Lord Discordance is highly likely. If that's the case, then expect to, turn one slingshot to chuck one of them over. If he's happened to take a sorcerer, expect to see Warp Time to chuck another, and then, play aggressively with the knight while Plague Bearers do their thing and prepare for turn 5. You can't remove me. It's the knight and the Lord Discordance are also glass hammered away because they're easy to remove if you don't play right. So I know because that was me at Warzone Giga getting removed quickly. But I think overall, list-wise, I agree with you that I think Chaos could potentially have great advantage on this one if played right. So I'd give that one to Austin.
Red.
Man, we've seen Austin, we've seen Gagno play before. From my perspective, just having seen them both go down, I honestly, I mean, he could prove otherwise by all means, but I think that Andrew Gagno is going to win this. I mean, army wise, I think the Sisters have a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of good that kind of comes out of left field for some folks if they're not ready for it. And not that I don't doubt Austin's prepared for it, but I'm going to give this one to Gagno, and that's inclined more towards Gagno's pilot skill in that regard.
Yeah, Andrew Gagne is definitely the man to beat. I think if he wins this, it'll be a three-peat for him.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Though, I gotta say, I can't count Austin out. If you guys didn't know, he was the one that wrote the ETC list with the triple disco Lord and the Morty. There's some sauce in Austin's list, I guarantee it. There's something maybe a little bit different that people haven't thought about yet. I got to go with Austin. I want him to be my dark horse. I want him to come out with this win.
So, what are we? 2-2 there. So we're torn on that one.
Yeah.
So, coin flip up. Go to Kurt Kloss versus Juice. This is a very interesting match because one, we're talking possibility of flyer spam versus Gene Stealer Colt. Now I know Juice has played the bike spam before, but I don't see Gene Stealer Colt being very dominant versus a flyer spam, with the exception of in the game if he survives, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It really just depends. With the ability to block movement and coming in, like if he maintains board control from the first turn all the way through the third turn, I think that he could potentially knock out the Gene Stealer Colt pretty easily. You know.
Well, there's no magic boxes, so we won't have to see Gene Stealer Colt hiding in a box and planes flying on top of the boxes.
Oh, this is true. From watching like great players like Chris Blackham, with his list, if they move correctly, they'll stop Gene Stealer Colt from being able to come anywhere close to their infantry, and that'll be game, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's about blocking the field at that point. No, I wanna say Juice gets the win, but that's a tough one because it depends. But I think if there's a good bit of flyers in that list, that Kurt takes it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially with the way that this ruling just came down, Juice is going to have to be very careful with how he cycles his reserves. Gene Stealer Colt can still cycle one unit every turn, but even still, with the way that the Eldar flyers move, they can block out from objectives. And I personally I love the Nova terrain, but it might as well not exist when your army is mostly flyers. There's nothing to hide under. There's no roofs, whether it be an open building or a magic box. There's really not a whole lot for Juice to hide behind. He doesn't like aberrants, from what I recall. So a lot of his army is going to be T3 with a 5-up save. If he brings enough of it, it could give Kurt a lot of trouble trying to shoot it all off. You can make 200 some models fearless pretty easily with GSC. But I think, Kurt is a very good player, knows what he's doing. And I'm with you, Daniel. As much as I want to say Juice takes it, I think Kurt does.
So, and for me, I think Juice, it's kind of like looking at any of these guys, right? They all know what they're going up against. There's a few people where I think like Gagno and Andrew and Austin, with Soup, they're going to bring their all-comers, like throwdown kind of deal, right? But some of these guys have the opportunity, and we've talked about that could disadvantage them later, but plenty of these guys have the opportunity to adjust or modify their list going into this, that they're not going to be as much of a disadvantage against what you might expect someone to come up to, right? So you've almost got, a lot of these brackets are like high noon duels out in the wild, wild west where the person that you're walking across the street from, right? And so is Kurt going to bring flyers under that understanding? Like, it's to his advantage to, but then he's got to fight either Austin or Andrew, right? And in that same consideration, are mass flyers going to be his greatest advantage in that fight? Are mass flyers going to beat Jim Vessel's plague bearers or somebody's plague bearers? Like that's the Eldar players have to be just as cagey in regards to their list, and to assume that I just don't think that we're going to see 9 flyers, maybe 6, but we've already talked about it. Flyers don't do well in Nova format comparison, and so
I say he's smart and he brings 4.
4 to 6, right? 4 to 6. I can
Yeah.
see 4 to 6.
But then Wind Riders,
oh yeah. No, I mean scatter bikes.
9 to 18 scat bikes as a GSC player, and strength 6 even at AP0 with a 5 up save.
Oh yeah.
So I think we all have to go with Kurt at that point. We can hope Juice kind of busts some bubbles, but next up is Nick Nanavati with Gene Stealer Colt versus Devin Swan. This is a really tricky one right here because I don't know. I think Tao has Gene Stealer Colt's number on multiple levels, but prove me wrong, right?
I mean, hey, nobody can walk into a GT and win with him, right?
I mean, hey, I'm surprised everyone's not playing Tao at the Invitational.
Oh. No, Gene Stealer Colt have a lot of great tricks, and the one thing that worried me when looking at lists before the event even started over the weekend was there's a lot of Gene Stealer Colt here. They have a lot of tricks, and like let's say if one of them drops a flamer bomb, 3 inches away from me, that's gonna light up literally all of my shield drones. And if my shield drones are gone, then those Riptides are easy chewing for rock saws. It's gonna come down to how well they play their lists.
Yeah, but I mean, Devin's a smart. He's I think number 2, only like 8 points behind Siegler for Tao, and he's been in the big spotlight several times as well. So, if it comes up to Gene Stealer Colt, he'll put the shield drones behind his big stuff and just overwatch everything, and beg him to come in with flamers. I mean,
yeah, it just depends on how he does it. He's actually going to have to space some of his stuff apart just a little bit in the backfield against Gene Stealer Colt instead of like the nice tight castle deployment, in my opinion. But if he brings like a battalion, he's got those fire warriors. He can easily do that and create that bubble of safety, and then maybe use your vanguard movement with Pathfinders, as you should, and create that negative charge bubble as well as that safety bubble for all of your key units.
Tony, what you got? You're a Gene Stealer Colt man.
So this really depends. Devin Swan, if I'm remembering correctly, doesn't tend to bring like a Brohammer Gundam Wing list. He likes Mech Tau. He likes Hammerheads. He likes. I think he played a couple of
Sharks.
Yeah, the bombers.
Yeah, the bombers.
At a Canadian event where he played against TJ Lanigan. It's not your typical what you see typically from Tau. I didn't really count. I didn't think he had a lot of drones last time I saw. So it's a bit of a different list in that he could potentially feed Nick vehicles one at a time to try to hold them off. I think a majority of the army has fly, so Nick's not hugging anything. He's not locking anything down. On the flip side of that, Nick's played that matchup before. It's it's hard to root against the champ in many ways. There's a lot of the way the Nova L setup is. There's a lot of places to hide and charge through walls, or say I'm going to sit on this side of the thing and make you come at me. It's really. I think Nick's got the advantage there just because he can kind of bully the Tau into a corner, bully him where he wants him to be, and take the objectives that he wants to take. If Devin tries to feed him a vehicle at a time, it means that Nick could potentially turn that Overwatch off, kill that vehicle, consolidate out of line of sight, and then do it all over again the next turn.
Well, I mean, if he's true to what you just said with that Hammerhead Star, then, I mean, they don't for the greater good. So that kills most of his Overwatch potential already right there, especially against Gene Stealer Colt.
Right. But that's
Does
only
that, then it goes to Nick.
that's only if Devin is running what he normally runs. And again, he could be trying something new. We don't know.
Red.
So I've got, I just think Nick's kind of been preparing for this for a while. Not to say that Devin hasn't, but I really do think that Nick is just. I think it's about time that we saw him at ETC. We saw Nick go all out, and I don't think he's going to hold back in regards to the Invitational either. I think that the Nova terrain is going to support him hands down against Tau. I think that Tau isn't going to be able to close the distance on a GSC army that's taking full advantage of that. I think that being able to move through the Nova Ls, because they are ruins, is going to, I do think that that's going to win Nick that bracket at least.
Okay. So are we 2-2 now?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one's gonna go to Nick. Like, unless he runs the triple Riptide, triple Commander, I don't think he's gonna be able to pull it out.
And then next we got Matt Schumann and Chris Blackham. Another Eldar versus Dean Steeler Colt. I love Chris, but
I'm actually gonna give that one to Blackham right off the bat. He's played LR Flyers for so long, he knows exactly what to do to counter them. And Gene Stealer Colt is that one army. If you know how to counter another list, you're gonna trample it, as we've seen Tony do with other people before.
go out on a limb and just say Chris anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rule Matt Schuckman out. So I don't know if you guys follow it that closely, but he's been running a Seer Council list, which is actually very interesting. He run maybe 6 flyers at the most, maybe less. But I'm assuming the Dark Eldar detachment he's running will be the Razorwing Jet Fighters. But the Asuryani will most likely be a Seer Council, which will be a bunch of Warlocks on bikes that he'll buff up to high heavens. And that's a very difficult matchup for Chris. He could Roxas bouncing off 3-up invul saves with a 5-up Feel No Pain at -1 or -2 to hit can be very troublesome for GSC. I'm going to go with Chris just because he's a good friend of mine and I think he's a great general. But you can't just write off Matt Schuckman in this. He's a very good player. He's been running that list for some time, and he knows how to pilot it well.
Very true. All right.
And if you've seen Chris play, you know he's kind of like Neandon, where he's just going to will the dice into his favor anyway. So,
well, guys, we appreciate you guys coming on. I know it's getting late here. We made it through round 1, and I'll be up at Nova myself, and I'll try to be giving some live updates on whether or not we chose wisely or poorly, and go from there. But congratulations on your win. You're first and second place at the event this weekend. Hopefully we'll see Brenton at Nova. If not, we'll see Tony coming up soon at Warzone. We'll see both of you.
Yep.
So, looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
yeah, no, I appreciate coming on. Thank you.